What is going on, you guys? Thank you for coming back for another video. I got something a little bit different today. I'm going to be going over basically opening up a Pro Tools session and how I usually start a Pro Tools session. Not sure if any of you guys use it if you're recording, or if you have Pro Tools and you're just not really sure how to start, or it looks too confusing, whatever. Hopefully this will help you guys get started on it. I'm going to be going over basic startup stuff as far as sample rate, bit depth, how you should save the project, and then how to create your basic first track and other IO stuff. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I do already have a session opened up here, but I'm going to go ahead and open a new one. Just going to title it, YouTube test. So once you get your title in there, you can see we have a couple options. I usually just use local storage. You'd have to do stuff for the cloud backup, but if you have that, you can go ahead and do that. For the file type, we save it as a broadcast wave file, just because that's really compatible with pretty much every other DAW. For bit depth, you can do either a 24-bit or 32-bit float. I usually prefer the 32-bit float just because that's what I use for FL as well. For sample rate, you're going to be at 44.1, and the IO settings, they may have different settings depending on what you used last for your computer, but you can change those later on. You don't have to worry about that right away. And then the location is obviously going to be wherever you want to save it. It's saving to wherever I tell it to, basically, and I just have it saved into a Pro Tools folder usually, or a project folder. So we're just going to go ahead and create that. So bringing up right now, it's going to bring up, I'll just toss it on my desktop real quick. Alright, so now we can see what it looks like. This is what it looks like on my version when I open it up right away. As you can see, I do have dark mode, which I am so thankful Pro Tools made a dark mode for it, because it looks so much freaking better. So right away we can see we have our different options over on the side. We have our bars and beats. We have a tempo selector right there. Basically, when you add tracks, they're going to show up here. And we do have a mix window that is not going to be showing up right now because there's nothing in it. But this is our edit window. We have our transport controls up here. And then we have our toolbar up here as far as, grabber, stuff to cut the tracks. So let's go ahead and add, I'm going to go ahead and add a new track. And this is going to be Control-Shift-N. So you can either do Control-Shift-N, or you can go up to the track selection. I'll show you right here in a second. So for new tracks, you're either going to be in mono or stereo. It kind of depends on what you're working on. For this, we're just going to do a mono track. That'll show up right there. You see it's listed as audio 1. Now, if you did want to do it just a long way, we can go up the track. Then we're just going to hit new. And it's going to bring up another box. Same thing, same options. Just go ahead and create that one. We'll have 2 of them up so we can kind of fill it out. Also in the tracks, we do have a lot of other options here. Those are a little bit more advanced. I won't get into those today. So for this, let's go ahead and go into our IO setup. We have our tracks in there. So as we can see in this, we have stereo outputs, monitor path, and that's going to change depending on what your routing is for your outputs. It's really just going to depend on what kind of system you have, what you're running as far as how many speakers you have. If you do have smalls and big speakers, just going to have to figure that out. Usually what I do is I just have the in on whatever. If I have it coming in on a certain input that I want, or an interface, just going to have it on, 1 or 2 mono. And then if it's a stereo input, let's go ahead and add a stereo track just so we can see what that looks like as well. Go ahead and change this to stereo. Then we'll go ahead and click on the input for that one, and there you can see it has stereo input there. Also has a huge bus list. And then our output is going to be stereo outputs. So we have our stereo 1 and 2. So that will be coming out with the stereo output. That's basically what that looks like. As far as the mix window at this point, you can see that we do have tracks coming up. Once we add them to the arrangement window, they do start to come up in our mix window, and we can also adjust IO from here. And then we add our inserts and any sends if you want to send them to an effects send or anything else that you can create later on. That's one of our other options, and then you have our basic faders here. While I'm in the mix win, I'm going to go ahead and add a master channel, and this is basically going to just let me, it's a master fader. So we're going to go ahead and put that in mono for this. Go and create that. So now you can see we have our master fader here. I really wouldn't mess with that too much. I would say, unless you're doing mastering or mixing, just to keep an eye on the level of that for everything else. Don't touch the master fader. Touch everything else. Adjust every other fader. But keep an eye on this. Keep it right there. There's no reason to go above 0. There's not. So just don't. Just keep everything below that. And you'll see when something's clipping, it'll show up on here, this little red thing right here. It'll blink when it's clipping. But I would just use that to kind of keep an eye on your overall audio levels. So let's go ahead and go back to our arrangement window, and that is going to be control and then the equal sign. And we can see our master here, where we can adjust our master fader volume through automation or anything like that. There's like a few other things here. We have our meter. This is basically where we can change what meter we're in, and then same thing with our tempo here. We can make our tempo adjustments. So if I want to do it at 130, let's go ahead and put that in, and then you're going to be what note gets the beat, basically what beat is counted. So we added that. Now we're at 130, and you just have your transport again up there if you want to play it. Nothing happening, obviously. But yeah, so that's pretty much all I got. Hopefully that was helpful if you guys hadn't really looked into Pro Tools too much, or if you wanted to start using it. It's really simple. You got to practice around a little bit with it, but once you get that initial IO setup and everything else like that done, it's pretty easy. There's not much else once you learn the shortcuts too. The shortcuts make everything a lot easier, so if you do have a chance to learn those, go ahead and do it. But I really hope this was somewhat helpful, especially if you haven't had any experience in Pro Tools. I know Pro Tools is kind of outdated in some ways, but it's still one of the most used DAWs, especially in professional studios. It interfaces extremely well with consoles, especially large format consoles. So if you're talking SSL, anything over 24, 32 channels. I know one of our consoles that I work with is a 48 channel. So that's a really big console for any facility. I mean, it's not the biggest, but it's a decently sized console, and that's an SSL. So I would definitely recommend Pro Tools, especially if you're working with an actual console, even if it's analog, digital, doesn't matter. And if you're mixing, recording a lot of live stuff, like tracking larger groups, even just regular, if you just got a rapper or something, but you got the track outs and everything, I really recommend Pro Tools. The workflow is super easy once you learn it. So I would definitely recommend Pro Tools for any live tracking. Way over FL. Please stop using FL Studio for doing vocals. It gives me a headache. It sounds bad. Once you put it into the Pro Tools, you'll be amazed how much better it sounds. Anything else would sound better than vocals in FL. I'm sorry, I love FL, but that's just how it is. But yeah, so again, guys, thank you for watching the video, and I will see you guys Thursday or Friday, depending on if I want to do a video Thursday, but we will do the beat breakdown on Friday. And if you guys are interested in seeing more Pro Tools tutorials or any specific part of Pro Tools broken down, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already. I do appreciate that. And as always, give the video a big thumbs up if you liked the video, and I'll see you later this week. Thank you, guys.